episode of Tactical Enlightenment. This YouTube channel is dedicated to help you get better at Bannerlord through the use of advanced field command and tactics, but none of that really matters at all if you have naked characters, if you have characters that are poorly specced out, if you have a poor army composition, if you don't understand the other side of battle, right? That you can consider this kind of the foreplay of battle. You have to do all of this to have a successful battle, right? You can go in with poorly armored troops, poorly armored companions, and you're going to have suboptimal results, right? So in this episode, we've already talked a little bit about character spec. I'm going to start off talking a little bit about inventory, and we'll move into other components of the game, right? So I've talked about my main character here at length, but I'll basically cover it. He's a murderer. He's a battlefield murderer. As I talked about in the last episode, in case you didn't see it, his skill specs are designed to make him just a master of combat, and he has sort of marginal leadership skills and other skills. What that does, though, is that the three different areas of battle, horseback, hand-to-hand melee, and ranged, this guy's deadly in all three, right? He's got 330 two-handed skills. He actually had 330 one-handed skills, although I rarely use a one-handed sword now. You can see he even had bow skills. He's got 300 plus throwing, 330 athletics, 330 riding, 330 polearm. You get the idea, right? This guy's basically LeBron James on the battlefield. He dominates everybody. Choose your analogy. This guy's a savage badass, and the reason I like that is because in a battle, I often find myself in all three locations. Of course, a lot of battles I ride my horse most of the time, and you want to have a fast horse, right? This guy's got an elite fast horse, and he's got light armor on. I would prefer that his horse was as fast as possible, and so the horse armor that I actually have for him here is faster than the heaviest armor. Now, I do lose horses sometimes in battles, but I'm just not that concerned about that, right? I want my horse to be fast. I want to be able to chase down and skewer enemies, and I want to be able to generally move around as fast as I can on the field. It's not like the horse does no charge damage. It still does damage when I run over units, and sometimes I will change horses in the middle of a battle, but this is how I like to start. Of course, I've covered his armor before. I'm just going to kind of whisk through this. He basically has some of the best armor in the game, right? I've already talked about that. When you play a campaign as long as I have, you're going to get incredible drops from all the different from all the different armies that you defeat. So from the weapon side of thing, that's the horse side of thing. Let's talk about polearms for a minute. I like to have a very fast, moderate length swinging polearm, right? You can run around and spear people in the face. That's fine. I find it a lot more effective to have a polearm that's fast. Now look at this polearm. This polearm has 205 length. Actually, this is not the crafted two-handed polearm I prefer. I have one that's faster than this, but it still works for this episode to explain this. This is a custom item. You could still find comparable items on the battlefield. In fact, at one point I had a legendary Manavlion, however it's pronounced, and that was fucking wicked on the battlefield. So this guy here, I would prefer a polearm. The distances of length you can reach are critical, so are the speed, and I'll cover both. If you have a really long polearm and you swing it at a guy up close, and this is going to happen all the time, right? You're going to be right next to the guy you're trying to kill. You will hit him with the handle, right? You won't hit him with what's considered the handling, the sweet spot of the weapon, and you'll do minimal damage, right? It's especially penalized with the RBM mod. So what I want is a polearm that is very lethal, even if the enemy is close to me, but I want it to be long enough so that I can still slice their head off at, 4 foot of range. Now, I don't know how the length works in the game. I'm kind of assuming it's inches, but I have really no idea. My preference is for a polearm between 150 and 170 in length, right? That length number. You can use one that's 205, but I think you'll eventually start to migrate towards a faster, shorter polearm. Of course, the damage kind of becomes irrelevant when you have high polearm skill. You're pretty much one-shotting everything in the game anyways. So I want speed, right? Speed kills. You can see this masterwork War Razor, this drop, I guess, that we found on a battlefield. It is slow. It is 64 speed, and so very frequently, if you're head-to-head with a cons guard and you swing and he blocks or parries your attack, he's going to have the next attack. Basically, if you just mash your mouse repeatedly, it's still not going to matter. This weapon's going to swing too slow, and that cons guard is going to be on you swinging his weapon, fucking you up with his glaive. So I prefer speed. That way I can just mash my mouse like a skillless warrior that I am and kill everybody on the battlefield, right? This is basically sort of a way to help you not have to parry and block like you're you know, like your Jet Li or whoever, right? So I prefer like 150, 160 length. In fact, after this episode, I'm going to go search my inventories for a faster polearm for this upcoming campaign that we're going to do. But that's my feelings on polearm. The same thing, by the way, applies to axes. I do not want a very slow axe. You know, when you go into battle and you have your two-handed axes here, let's see, two-handed axes. They are, sorry, I apologize. Sometimes I got to sift through all my weapons to find my two-handed axes. So I prefer a very fast axe. This actually isn't the fastest axe that I have either. I kind of switch. I'm sort of experimenting with a bunch of different axes, but I would not, I'm not one of those guys that prefers the big, long, slow executioner axes. They just swing too slow, and just like what I was talking about with the polearm, if you swing a slow weapon in battle and you're fighting a legionnaire or something like that, you're going to get bitch slapped by their mace because they have the speed priority on you. If you have a blazing fast two-handed axe, and there are drops, right? There are game weapons that are very fast like this, although obviously your crafted weapons tend to be superior. If you have a faster axe, you're just going to be able to cut your way through the opponents literally before they can even swing at you, right? I just wade through with my high endurance. If you want to see what it looks like, just take a look at any of the battles we have on our playlists on our channel here, and you can see that I basically created a hand-to-hand murdering machine, right? He swings fast. Axes can kill two guys in the same swing, sometimes even three, and so this guy runs around and just butchers the battlefield. Even without a huge amount of skill. Obviously, you have to, with a faster axe, you have to get closer to the enemy, and so you do have to develop combat skills to use this successfully. But that's basically my philosophy on that side of swinging an axe. Similarly, I have a philosophy when it comes to javelins. I have high javelin skill. I find javelins, especially with the 250 perk where it goes right through the enemy's shield, as incredibly powerful, or borderline overpowered. And I have a strategy here. I do have crafted polearms that are really powerful. You can see, in fact, these are superior. If I put this on here, that Roman war javelin has higher stats than the Jereed. But here's the reason I like this. The large bag of Jereeds is because you get more. I'm already one-shotting. Actually, the stats are very similar here. Oh wait, no, that's comparing it to. Yeah, so this crafted weapon is a stronger weapon, a stronger javelin. But the reason I like a large bag of Jereeds, however you pronounce that, is that you're capable of killing more guys in the battlefield, right? My guy has a bunch of perks that give him even more javelins. This means that I start a battle with a huge amount of javelins, and I don't need the power of the crafted javelins. So in the future, if I run another campaign and I don't have custom javelins, I don't care. I'll just get large bags of Jereeds. In fact, there's nothing even wrong with going to your javelin area. As long as you have high enough skill, this will work just fine. A large bag of harpoons, you can see the damage is way less, or even, you know, one of these higher level ones, large bag of hooked javelins, you see the damage is now comparable. I annihilate people with this kind of a javelin still, and because it's a larger bag than the custom stuff, it makes the custom javelins sort of irrelevant. Every rare once in a while I'll do like 150 on a guy and he'll survive, but the overwhelming majority of opponents, if I hit them with this large bag of hooked javelins, they still die, right? So that's another point that I want to make about javelins. You don't need to have the best javelins in the game. I would just recommend you have a large bag, right? Whether it's Jereeds or one of the other high level javelins, that'll do just fine, right? So companions, I'll talk about them for a few minutes. This episode could be 2 hours if I talked about every single guy, what he's wearing. I'm not going to do that. I will talk about spears though. Do not, and I repeat, do not set up your companions to have spears if they're on foot. You want your guys on horse to carry a spear. Unfortunately, the gameplay, the mechanics in Bannerlord, RBM is a little better, but it punishes foot-to-foot spearmen. They're kind of worthless. Back in the day, of course, a lot of armies had plenty of guys with spears, and if you were very skilled with that one-handed spear and a shield, you were a formidable opponent, especially if you could whip out a sword. In Bannerlord, spears are garbage. Don't set up your companions with spear. If you're going to select them to be polearm, give them swingable polearms so they're more like Manavlions and they're fucking people up. However, your knights, you want to give them spears, and of course I give them high-end spears. I got legendary gear for most of my units on horse, especially. I think this guy's got, Yeah, increased charge damage. This guy, he's got 330 riding, 330 two-handed, right? This guy at 316 polearm. This guy fucks people up with his spear, right? Of course, he's got elite armor. A knight with a spear, especially on a charge, these guys do amazing amount of damage. And his cavalry, I think this is the most charge damage in the game. With his riding skill, this guy just trucks foot troops and archers, right? So this is a unit you definitely want to have eventually in your party. I would consider this your elite traditional medieval knight, right? Of course, he's got a sword and shield. He actually has harpoons here. And this is a good example. I could probably switch him out with the higher stack javelins, and he would be more effective on the battlefield. Those little kind of things, if you want to micromanage in your game, feel free. But the point is, though, is that this guy is an elite knight, and if you have several of these guys in your army and you put them in the same unit, you can have devastating cav charges on the enemy, right? If this guy's doing 40 or 50 damage to every guy he's hitting with his horse, imagine what 10 of them do, right? They're basically trampling the enemy to death just like it would happen in real life, right? So that's this guy. Who else can I cover? So this is a very common build you'll see amongst my characters, right? I like to have sort of unorthodox armor. They have a little different look to each of them. Of course, almost all of them have this elite armor, right? It's like legendary across the board because we're in such a late game campaign. But what I like is I like to have the sword and spear. The sword and shield warrior with lots of javelins. Again, you can make an argument I could switch out to the higher stacks here, but what this guy is, with his skill set, is a murderer on the battlefield, right? He's basically your elite wildling or other javelin skill thrower, and he has the throwing skill where he blows up shields on the battlefield, right? This is an incredibly powerful unit on the battlefield, and he also happens to ride a horse, so he's fucking people up. He's basically like the best Aserai Vanguard Ferris in the game, right? That's how you can consider a guy like that. So I covered spears. Let's see, what else do we have here? Varag, I've talked about him before. This guy's basically a mirror image of my main character, except he doesn't ride a horse, so we gave him extra javelins. In fact, he does have a large baggage of reeds, right? So this guy's running around chucking javelins in the face of people, absolutely mass murdering people. He does have a slower, big, heavy executioner's axe, and I kind of have a mix of this for my characters. Some of the guys that are two-handed, they have a shorter, faster axe, but he also demolishes people with one hit, even if they're like a legionnaire. It's auto one kill. Of course, he probably has elite armor. I don't even know. Of course, mostly elite armor. And this guy is also another formidable guy you'll see on our battlefield. So archers, where's Gweth? This is a very common character model you'll see me use, right? This character, she runs around, she butchers everything in sight. She's got kind of soft armor. In fact, in this episode, I'm going to change her armor. I like to have specific armor so that I can identify what companions on the battlefield in case I want them to follow me, or in case I'm not sure what unit they are. I know by having this unique armor on the battlefield, I kind of know who my companions are. But in my campaign where things have gotten so difficult, I'm actually going to change out her gear. She's got this armor, that way I can recognize her, but we're going to go ahead and stick her in some incredibly elite armor here. That way her survivability is higher. We'll give her a helm. And I'm doing this because even though it's kind of worked so far to have these people running around in pretty good armor, but not great so I can identify them, I'm getting to a very perilous stage of my campaign, and I want to make sure that they have the highest survivability rate, or near the highest survivability rate as possible. So she's got a wicked two-handed axe. It's kind of slow, but it destroys everything in sight. And then a noble bull. Now, I used to have some legendary noble bulls, or maybe they were masterwork noble bows and stuff like that, but I think the characters that had them died because I don't have any more in the game at this stage. So she's just got a traditional noble bow. But here's what I want to show you. She has two... Actually, we're going to be able to upgrade her shit here. Take a little break here. I just got some of these recently. I saw these from a battle. Look at this shit. So she already has good arrows, right? This legendary bodkin arrow. You can see there's more arrows than normal, and they do 6 piercing damage, right? That's really powerful. And then this one is nice too, the balanced stacked bodkin arrow, because you want in large battles for your archers to be shooting for a long time, right? So she has, with this build, she has 61 arrows. But here's what we're going to do. We just had some recent drops from battles. This is probably one of the best arrow quivers you can have in the game, right? Legendary stacked bodkin arrows. So compare it to the bodkin arrows. It does the same amount of damage, but she gets 8 more arrows, right? So that's a no-brainer. And then this other one, balanced stacked, it does, it's comparing it to that. Let's see. balance stacked. It's doing more damage. There we go. It's doing more damage. It's comparing it to the other one. The point is, though, it does more damage. And look at the arrows. 37 arrows she gets, right? So instead of 32, now she has 37 arrows. That means she has 74 arrows at least. In fact, I think she has a lot more than that because of perks. Of course, this gal, like so many of the other ones, I think I already showed her in a previous episode, 330 bow, 330 two-hand, 330 athletics. Those are the 3 skills that I need her to do. She's basically an incredibly savage axe killer, right? You can think of her like the character at the last scene in Fargo, right? She kills people with her axe. And she obviously is totally lethal at range, and she can shoot arrows for an incredibly long time, right? This kind of character, if you can make companions like this in your game, these are like gods on the battlefield. And it's not uncommon for me to see a character like this get 60 to 80 kills on a battlefield, right? She expends her arrows at range. She's doing massive damage. She's shooting fast. She's probably very accurate. She probably has 80 to 90 arrows depending on the battle. And then she whips out her two-handed axe and just destroys people with that side of things as well, right? I know who she is. Frequently, I'll assign this gal to one of my archer divisions, and she's part of the reason that they're able to help us with the kill box, right? The kill box is where we move around quickly on the battlefield. Check out episodes on it, by the way. The kill box is one of the tactics that I've really developed into an absolute massacring machine. It's primarily used against a lot of infantry opponents. But it's a nasty tactic where speed is vital. So I will assign her frequently as the captain of an archer division, and obviously with her skill set, she makes all of those archers about as good as they can be, right? She's like the army, be all you can be. They run around, they mow everybody down with arrows, and obviously her skills on the other side of things, athletics, and her axe-wielding skills help those troops butcher the enemy even more effectively. And again, because of her banner, they all move like they're Usain Bolt, right? 330 athletics and 60% or 30%, movement skill or movement speed. This gal is flying around the battlefield, even with some moderately heavy armor, right? So those are some of the critical things. I don't think I want to cover any more of these characters. I have all these characters, and obviously they're different variations, right? They have very similar kind of concepts, right? They usually have a legendary executioner axe, right? She's got some really good gear, and again, who's surprised? She has a high-end bow and lots and lots of arrows. In fact, here's another character. I can upgrade her bows, right? So this is another gal. I think she's 322 two-handed, so she's getting there, right? She's still leveling up, but 330 riding skill, 312 bow, 313 athletics. She's a fucking badass, right? If she had a Tinder account, I'm sure all of you out there who are just starting the game and looking for a wife, you'd be winking at her, right? Saying, hey, let's make some savage babies here, right? So hopefully that's a nice view into our huge army. Again, I'm not going to show you 512 characters here. I can show you one more, I guess. This guy's a crossbow guy, right? So of course we give him a masterwork bound crossbow. I mean, it's just the gear that our army has is off the charts, right? This is probably the best bolt in the game, and he has 2 of them, right? So this guy's absolutely lethal, destroying everything in sight with his crossbow. Then I don't recognize that. That's probably a crafted 2-handed sword. Then he whips that thing out. Of course, this guy probably, like everybody else, 330 athletics, 330 crossbow. It is true. I basically have like gods on the battlefield, and that's part of the reason we win huge difficult battles with these characters, right? They have incredibly good skills, but I've gone in and taken the time. Of course, he has decreased taken ranged attack damage, so that his unit can be defensive. I've taken the time to dial these guys in, to give them the equipment that is optimal for them, so that we can butcher people on the battlefield, right? This is a critical component of the game. Some of it is experimental. You will sort of have to play around with different character makes. Please don't put spear on any foot troops unless somebody's found a way to use them more effectively than me. It's absolute garbage, and I beg you not to do that. Save your spears, your 2-handed spears, for your cavalrymen. All right, so let's see. A little bit of discussion here about campaign strategy, because this is a big component in Bannerlord, is you must have strategy and you must sort of have a plan. If you just wander around and look for battles, your campaign's probably not going to go anywhere, and this may not be any use to a lot of players out there. I recognize there are a lot of advanced players that subscribe and watch our episodes here. In fact, I kind of like to think of all the guys that are watching episodes here as mostly badasses at Bannerlord that are picking up a nugget or two. And if our guys faced a bunch of players from one of those other channels where the amount of information they're getting is I would guess, I don't know, maybe it's a little arrogant to say, but a little less sophisticated, we'll call it. I would like to think that the subscribers on our channel are a bunch of badasses, and you guys, especially after we do some sharpening of skills between our communications, become even more savage. It is still possible, though, that some of the information I'm about to share is beneficial, and so I'm going to go ahead and do so. Right? You've got a campaign map. You've got to have a rough idea of what it looks like, right? I've got kind of this oval-shaped, fucked up campaign, and we're against everybody. So you need to have a strategy for that, right? If I'm just randomly running around looking for battles here, it's going to go poorly. We've got to use our heads before we use our swords. So I've talked about this in other episodes. I'll talk about this more in future episodes of the pre-battle. Some of this is review, but I like to have big armies out there. In this case, I have this one juggernaut army of 2,100 men, and I talk about this guy is evidently a ghost. That helps him. He's invisible. This guy kills a lot of guys. Evidently, armies like this obviously are going to be hugely successful on the battlefield. I'm not going to go into too much detail about how I got that setup. In fact, I cover that more in later episodes. I say later because this is actually going to be episode number 2, and these episodes, I think the episodes that you're going to be looking for will be something like episodes number 9, and number 10 that talk a little bit more about how to make badass companion armies, right? So he has this huge army, 2,100 troops, and I have a castle here that's under siege that looks like it's going to fall. I'm not worried about it. This guy's up there. He's going to butcher that castle, or not the castle, but yeah, he's heading right to that forest there. He's going to defend that. And so because of that, I can go down here and wreak some havoc. This castle was under siege. I'll make sure nobody's down there attacking it still. The point is, though, is that you can't be everywhere at once. And so what I like to do in Bannerlord is I like to have at least one superior army. And that's because the most important thing, I talked about this before, the most important thing in Bannerlord is to win your battle. If you lose, of course, all your guys are taken prisoner. You got to pay ransom. You got to pay ransom for all your companions. You lose all your fucking equipment. It's a fucking disaster. And if you win, of course, you get all the experience. You get all the loot from the enemy. You keep all your troops. They get experience. Your companions gain experience. This is a zero-sum game. You must win the overwhelming majority of your battles in Bannerlord to have success. Now we're going to have success, right? Because we have our army, we have some tactics so that we can defeat armies that are probably twice our size. But your companions will not. They will not go out there and crush enemies twice their size. So what I want to do is I want to have as large an army out there as possible, right? So what I did, of course, and I'll cover it in 30 seconds, is I stacked units full of powerful units. I actually gave them a bunch of influence, gave them money, gave these lords the resources they needed to make these very powerful armies. And whenever it'll probably happen during this episode, whenever he attacks the siegers at this castle, I have no doubt that he'll be successful, right? Because we have prepared him for success. Now knowing that he's in the north here, and if any of these cities or castles are attacked, he's going to be able to take care of business. We now freely head south. It's our turn now to take care of business in the south here, and we're going to go ahead and do some bad things to the enemy in the south, right? Effectively, what I know is my flank is covered, right? This guy's coming in just like Napoleon. Napoleon had brilliant marshals. In fact, some of Napoleon's best marshals, you could have argued, were actually as good or better field command than Napoleon. In particular, oh my God, how come I can't remember his name? Anyways, the marshals that Napoleon had were elite, and that was part of the reason that Napoleon had success, because you can't cover the whole map. if your other marshals are just getting their asses kicked left and right, right? They've got to gather new troops, cost resources, they've got to get ransomed, etc. You want them winning battles. That's how they gain experience, and you're going to have a lot more success. All right, so Varagos Castle's under siege here. We're going to head south. We just recruited some troops. We're going to kind of speed this along here while... Now, it says Olguna's party's attacked. They're actually the ones attacking here, right? So they're up there. They're defending Mazadon Castle. And very soon, we're going to see the death spam of all the enemy troops that are taken in that defense up there, right? Now, you notice I'm going over the limit here. I'll do that sometimes, especially in a campaign where I know I'm going to have... where I know I'm going to take some castles. I don't care if there are some deserters, because when I take a castle, I need to have as large a defensive force as possible, for stocking that castle full of garrison units, right? Okay, so success, right? They just mauled whatever force. This looks like it was a Western Empire force. They totally mauled them, and they were barely injured, right? So they slaughtered the foe that they attacked there. They mauled through them, and I have no doubt that wherever they go next, they're going to have success, right? You can see he's wandering off again. Who knows where he's going to go, but he's on to the next challenge. And for us, it's on to this challenge, right? We've got a force of Northern Empire here. We very excitedly, confidently attacked this force here. In fact, I think I want to fight them at this town. I've done this before. We'll actually just include a battle in this episode here. I'd like to have a little bit more daylight here to fight them. Here's another thing too. If you have enemy forces that are nearby, just tell them to give you recruits. Give us your fucking recruits, right? And then they have to give you guys. Sometimes they'll fight you, but most of the time they just say, here's some troops, thanks. I like to say philosophically, sort of role-playing, that I go into their town then, and I give them top dollar and I buy all their shit. That way I can sort of justify the whole extortion side of thing. So we'll let these guys attack us here. Emperor Emeris, or whatever the fuck, the latest victim. We're outnumbered 2-1 here. That, folks, is not going to matter at all. So I automatically just free all these guys here. Make peace with the Aserai. See, my dipshit nobles, non-stop, they want peace, and we tell them, shut the fuck up, we're not having peace with anybody, and I spend 1,000 influence to do that. My influence is going down much faster than it ever has before, but that's my campaign, right? We're going to tell our nobles, know your place. Your guys' place is to do whatever the Jarl says, right? So you can see, actually, the power bar is almost 50-50 here, even though we're outnumbered 2-1, and they readily attacked us, but this is, because of the quality of our troops here, this is not going to be much of a fight here. I can cover this in 30 seconds too. You want to make sure you have good captains for your groups, right? This is sort of obvious, and if anybody's rolling their eyes there, I'm only going to spend 30 seconds on it. You want to have captains that have a huge list of perks, and you want to have the banner assigned to them that makes the most sense, right? My third cav division is typically a cav division that I use in a square. I'll use them in a square as a defensive sort of a distractionary process a lot, and so I want them to have decreased taken melee damage, right? I want them to be able to get speared 1,000 times by the enemy and to get wailed on by the enemy infantry and have the highest chance of survivability. Atchir, I already covered him in the characters. Decreased taken ranged attack damage. If you have your ranged attack damage and they're taking less damage, that means they can spar with enemy archers better, right? A lot of this is pretty self-explanatory, pretty simple. Of course, I'm leading the 8th Corps, and look at it. These guys have perks, right? They've got a nice, that's a nice cute list of perks that you give your group. Look at mine. Right, because he's got all of these combat skills. I'm not going to enumerate all this, but you can see all of the troops fighting for him, which in this case is the elite 8th Corps. These guys become even stronger than they already are, right? So you can only imagine how powerful that makes your army on a battlefield, right? Now I'm actually going to use the 3rd Corps here. I'm going to use these little horse pens. In fact, let's see here. We're going to get sort of creative here. What I'm gonna try to do here is effectively divide my archer corps into different groups here, and we're gonna play defensive. The enemy likes to attack us here. Very bad decision, but we will take their bad decision and we will make the most of it, right? So I'm gonna stretch out a couple archer corps there. Our 5th archers I'm actually gonna drag in a big long line here. It's okay if they're not all in there. Those guys are going to be somewhat protected now by these little horse pens. Our second cav, I think I'm just going to put in a big long line here to slow down enemy cav charges. We'll be moving troops around a little bit in this battle. The 8th Corps can go in here. Now almost all these guys have ranged weapons, right? This 8th Corps, these elite knights that I have in our army, a lot of them have 300 throwing skill, 300 archer skill. And so as you're going to see in this upcoming battle, with all the different things that we've done in the first episode, this is going to make our army an absolutely destructive, destroying machine of worlds, right? At some point I might take the 3rd cav, put them out here in a square, and again we'll do that to distract the enemy, to sort of have them focus on it while we obliterate them with our ranged troops. Now the layout of the land is critical. I don't know if you can tell. Originally I thought this was all flat. Clearly these guys here, if I put a cav division on the other side there, they're not going to be able to hit them. None of my units are going to be able to shoot them, so I actually want to pull some units back here. I want the enemy effectively to come closer to us so that we can shoot them with our 80 Britannian Fiend Champs and all these other savages, right? I've got my 8th Corps here. We're going to leave the 1st Corps here in a nice line. They've got protection from ranged units, and every other guy's got a shield, right? I'm not actually going to fight in this battle. This is just going to be another one of those battles where all I do is command. I've got the 3rd cav over here in a nice defensive line. And this is how easy it becomes if your army is prepped, right? If your army is set up with the right skills, the right equipment, the right army composition, and of course some battlefield strategy. I don't have to do shit in this battlefield. I mean, as far as swinging my axe, I can run around, I can do some damage. I guess I can throw a javelin or two, but none of this fucking matters. Right? We're going to be able to absolutely skewer the opponent here. My opponent, or my allies, are absolutely eviscerating them at range. If and when the enemy vanguard comes in, I think we're going to be able to butcher it like all these other episodes, no problem. And so we're just going to. This is basically a demonstration to show you that. Oops, I moved the wrong unit there. This is just a demonstration basically to show you that the recipe of our chili wins awards, right? This is very effective. The cav here is obviously going to block the enemy cav charge while they're stopped up and these guys can't move. They're being absolutely skewered by our high-level 6th. There's Britannian Fiend Champs in here. The death spam is all green. And the enemy has virtually no chance. Again, this is normal player damage, right? We're playing on the same difficulty level as anybody else. It's the hardest difficulty level, but the enemy just doesn't have a chance here. I actually feel like I'm wasting arrows here because there's not very many enemies attacking us. We're going to attack with this 2nd Corps. They have increased charge damage. And I'm playing this battle a little bit lazily, right? I'm not running around with my troops. I'm not going to try to do any really advanced flanking. And part of the reason I'm doing that is just to show you that if you develop your army, oops, sorry, I don't mean to make you dizzy. If you develop your army in a way that your units are dialed in optimally, they have the right skills, tactics becomes, I don't want to say unnecessary, but they become a lot less vital, right? You're gonna run around with this butchering army and just absolutely obliterate the vast majority of your opponents without doing a lot more than just sort of the obvious tactic here, right? We're in defensive formations here. At this stage, we're sort of sparring with the enemy. The enemy has a handful of cav over here. We can have the 6th Corps attack these guys. The enemy's actually playing very defensive here, which is just fine. And if they stay very defensive, we'll move our units up to attack. So this is a strategy I like to call shield and shock. I've got a cav division here that's in a shield wall. That's the shield part of it. And then I just sent in the 6th Corps behind him. A lot of these guys are skirmishers and two-handed weapon motherfuckers. They go in, now protected by these cav, and the enemy's mauled. Right? The enemy can't really attack our guys as readily as they want to. And this 6th Corps full of two-handed weapon guys, legionnaires, elite companions, just butchers everything in sight. Okay, we're going to flank with our 5th. Let's see, 5th, 4th. Our 4th is closer. We'll use them. So we're going to bring our 6th and 4th over here, along with the 3rd Corps, because we're going to flank the enemy. They're being a little defensive here. I don't want this to be a 2-hour episode. So I'm moving units up here in place. The cav, of course, is in the front. The 6th gets shifted to shield wall. Oops, almost as soon as I said that, the enemy started to attack. So Anytime the enemy's going to willing to come to you, let it, right? If you're in a defensive position like this, that's highly beneficial for you. Let the enemy come to you. You're going to be able to maul them much more successfully than if you go try and attack them, right? If your archers are moving, they can't shoot. You don't have horse archers for everywhere, right? And so what we're doing here is allowing the enemy to come to us. Everybody but their javelin throwers can't use their projectile weapons. Now that they're close enough, we open fire and watch the murderous fire. These guys are getting enfilade fire. I've got a cav. That's the third cav. They're in a square, so they're playing sort of defensive. Just going to go in here and run some people over. This gets you kind of closer to the enemy, so you can sort of see what the enemy is facing here. They're trying to get to us, but they're just facing absolutely murderous fire. Now we're going to attack with the second corps because the archers are starting to get attacked there. That sends those cav in. The enemy's sort of being hit from the side. These archers over here, these guys have nasty enfilade fire on the enemy. There's a death every, I don't know, 10 or 15 allied troops. We have the 6th Corps here. We can send these guys in. Again, this is sort of sloppy, lazy tactics. But under the circumstances, again, like I said before, I'm doing this to show you that you don't even need like incredible tactics. If you set up your army correctly, if you equip them correctly, if you put the right clothes on them, then you're going to have just much more success. Look at the death score. This is what, 8 or 10 to 1 in our favor, even though these guys are outnumbered. And of course, imagine what happens if you take the same setup here and use tactics. Now we're talking a complete, utter massacre. I'm actually going to bring these archers up here. We're going to speed this battle up a little bit. My 5th Corps advancing them a bit. Over here are our foes being immolated right here by our high-level infantry. We're being attacked by 2 cav divisions and two infantry divisions, as well as the 8th Corps. Again, nothing fancy. We're not doing a whole lot of flanking here. And it's just a whole lot of green. The enemy's now reforming. We'll send our units in here just to sort of overwhelm. Again, we'll move our archers up here. The 5th Corps is now in place. They're closer to the enemy. All these Battanian Fiend champs are opening fire. They don't have a very good line of sight here, so we'll move them a little closer. In a battle like this, I probably have, I don't know if it's 100, but it's probably 50 Battanian Fiend champs. You know, it's one of the most powerful units in the game. You want to have Battanian Fiend champs. I have an episode that talks about how to get more Battanian Fiend champs in your army. A little concerned that you can't hear me. I hope this episode I don't have to reshoot this battle scene. I'm aware that people want to hear me and not the combat. They can hear the combat in their own game. So I'll turn the volume down there. Just a hint for you. I can run some guys over here. I haven't swung my weapon, I think, the whole battle. Right? We're outnumbered 2 to 1, but the quality of our troops is superior. They're wearing better equipment. Obviously, we're using some tactics, but at this stage, honestly, like F1, F3, in fact, here, let's just fucking do it. F1, F3, everybody charges. The amount of jokes out there about how F1, F3 works. Well, it works until you're in a battle where you're hugely outnumbered or you don't have the right army makeup, right? It doesn't work for every battle. In fact, I can't help but micromanage a little bit here. We'll put some archers on the enemy's flank over here. F1, F3, really, folks, the only reason you should be doing that is very early on when you're just learning how to use the game. If you're still using F1, F3, and you're conquering most of the map, boy, I beg you, please see some of our intermediate tactic videos. I have this whole series of videos that will just sort of help you micromanage some of the sort of easy parts of battle. I will help you develop into a good field commander, maybe even a great field commander. The videos under the intermediate tactic series, look at these archers are just immolating the enemy from the flank. Our intermediate tactics series will help you step by step go from being, an unexperienced, uncomfortable field commander to a total beast on the battlefield in about 10 episodes, right? Of course, it'll take practice in between. I'm not just going to spend a half hour with you and turn you into Napoleon, but I think it'll give you a really good ground foundation to help you just start rolling up the enemy in Bannerlord. It's highly exaggerated, the value of things like F1, F3. I can tell you right now that it might even be 5 or 10 to 1 as more effective if you actually use good tactics in Bannerlord than just doing F1, F3. And I think you'll also have a lot more fun, right? You're going to be at the helm. You're going to be actually steering the ship, so to speak, and you're going to take a lot more accomplishment, a sense of accomplishment, and I think a sense of enjoyment, fulfillment from commanding your own troops, right? So please let me help you if you're still using F1, F3. I beg of you, and start to develop that component of your field command. So I literally haven't swung my weapon the whole battle. I think I threw a couple bad javelin throws here, and I think hopefully this is more than sufficient to show people that if you set up your army, obviously you need some high-level troops, but if you set up your army, if you optimize your companions, if you put them in the correct weapon loadout, the enemy just becomes dust or leaves before the gale of our wind, right? They just absolutely melt away. You can enjoy all the sounds of battle as you behead these insolent fucking peasants and become master of your game in Bannerlord, right? This game is highly rewarding. It's not a perfect game by any stretch of the imagination, but through practice, right, we're going to get a little javelin practice here. Probably kill some of our own guys. I'm very good at that. I think through practice, you can dominate this game, you can have a lot of fun, and you can get a lot better, right? It's a very complex game. It's a little bit like chess. Anybody can play, but it takes a long time to master. All right, friends, I think that's plenty of length for this episode. If you want to learn more, something specific about the game, you just let me know. I'm more than happy to make videos on custom things or answer questions about something very specific. I'm a almost retired firefighter. I'm still contemplating whether or not to do this sort of full-time. And what I mean by that is full-time, where I make episodes at some point conceivably for monetization, but at this stage I'm just doing this for fun. There shouldn't be any ads. I apologize if you see any ads. The channel's not monetized. If there are any monetized ads, it's from Google. But I'm trying to decide if this is worthwhile as a hobby job. Obviously, I'm not going to spend hundreds of hours of doing this. And cranking out tons of episodes indefinitely, unless there's a reason to do this beyond fun, right? I'm only going to have so much fun trying to get anybody watching this channel, a better time. So don't worry though. I have no interest in monetizing soon. I'm not going to start cranking out the ads on this. So, again, there shouldn't be any ads. I'm just having a good time with this. So let me know what you think. Let me know whether or not you want to see more material on something specific. As you can see, an absolutely destructive massacre here. Even with just clumsy tactics, a force twice our size just melts away. Our companions are out there gaining all kinds of skills. I guess we can cover a few of the ones I was talking about. So let's see here. Actually, there's nothing really remarkable here. A few of these guys, Griff, he has high throwing and combat skills, killed 34 guys, right? So these companions are absolute murderers. Anyways, but to wrap things up, thanks again for watching, friends. Please leave comments, subscribe, hit the like button. All those things are good for the channel. I appreciate you guys a ton, and I will see you guys next time.